better weighing than what I've received here as a person in this country. And think about the white person, because the white people have gotten all the same stuff and the added denial piece. We're not going to own any of it. We're not going to own any of what we've done. We're okay with looking at your injury. We're okay with saying
they didn't do it.
Yeah. It had nothing to do with me. Somehow this happened 246 years based on their account of enslavement. Let's be clear: rape, beating, selling, dehumanizing, brutalizing folks. But that has somehow nothing, has everything to do with you now, but nothing to do with me. And so, well, who are those people behind the scenes doing that? Who are those people? And I think that we got a glimmer again. Katrina showed folks, my goodness, why can we still not show our humanity to these people? And anyone that's European has to look at that and look at that behavior and ask oneself, why couldn't I get myself emotionally around that? I'll go to the tsunami folks. Just show me anybody else. Why not this group of people? And that is, I think, being questioned by people silently. But it's not in the schools. That's a big problem.
Quick question. In your travels to Africa, has there been any discourse about what we're talking about now? In other words, what did it do to the African family to have a family member kidnapped? Has it been a trauma that has been ongoing?
Well, absolutely. And there's what I've experienced, and again, I cannot speak on a broad, generalized sweep, but in terms of my experience in talking to people, it was a cause, of course, injury. Loved one's gone. It's like anything else. Someone snatches up someone you love.
Right.
Right? The difference was you had a community intact, a family, a village, if you will,
to help you heal.
To help you heal from that.
Yeah.
You had other folks that looked like you that could help you process that. The clinical help, so to speak. But there's also a considerable amount of shame associated with it. There's associated with it also is guilt, right? So you have those things that are there. And again, why didn't we help? Why did we participate? There are all the questions unanswered there that they look at. And this is on an individual level, going to different villages and talking to people from various walks of life. So clearly it's there. But what Africa was able to do, particularly the west coast of Africa, is to engage in a sense of cultural collectivism, where people felt this sense of who they were and who they are, so that they were able to heal from it.
Well, you know, my history book tells me, though, that the European was in Africa for a while before the implementation of the slave trade and the kidnapping. So maybe they were able, you know, the church came in and, you know, turned a lot of things around in Africa.
Yeah. Turned a lot of stuff around in Africa. My accounts in terms of what I see there, and clearly, you know, one of the things, like when you go into one of the slave castles, you know, there's this whole thing about how Europeans brought such industry, and they brought progress, and, you know, it's like, we helped you people. You know, we helped you, which somehow justifies all the rest of the stuff we did. And clearly, you know, I tell people all the time, when I look at the problems that Africa suffers from now, that is part of Africa's legacy, having nothing to do with, I mean, it's hard to not have anything to do with intrusion or colonization and this sort of thing. Clearly those influences were there, and much of that was quite negative. But there was also quite a bit in Africa that needed to be addressed. That was just an African cultural nuance. And those things happen, and we have to own those. We have to recognize that they're not necessarily positive aspects of Africa. At the same time, I think we cannot separate what has been done to Africa from those on the outside, who continue to, I mean, you look at who's owning Africa now and who's buying Africa and who's trying to control Africa. You know, it's clearly outside agencies, including other countries like China.
The economy of Africa is not controlled by Africans.
There you go. You know, and so it's happening more and broader, and I think the rest of the world is beginning to look on, and we are as a humanity having to take a look at how we go about living on this planet. We can't continue to do those things. Okay.
We need to take another break, but when we come back, I want to talk now about the here and now and some painful things that I'm going to bring to your attention after this. All right, leaping forward in time to the here and now, we're confronted, thanks to you and many other resources, with the trauma that we've suffered. And on top of all of this, we have this enormous Holocaust fiscally, economically, and it's causing some devastating impacts in the black community in particular. And I want to sort of reach out and show you a particular instance from which I speak. I came across a photograph that ran on the front page of the Beacon newspaper, and with their permission, I'm showing it to you now. It's a very painful picture of this young man on the left who lost his job, and he had this family to support, and confronted with the reality of not being able to support his family, he killed them, and then he killed himself. And it's torn me up, and at the risk of being morbid, it's real.
Sure.
And I wanted to know what thoughts run through your mind, and how many of us are suffering similarly.
Well, you know, there's two things that came to mind when this happened. Well, the first thing was that I think most people, we have this group trauma. We go, was he black? Okay, so when we hear it, we go, was that a black family?
Yes, yes.
Because it was inconsistent with our experience. Now, it's not uncommon to hear that a white person goes in, got fired, shot everybody at the job, and killed themselves.
That's one thing.
Not uncommon. And it has happened historically, where we've heard, it has happened so much, kids going into school, shooting everybody. Let's just do the math. And if we were to look at that in terms of who does that, it's usually white people that do that. It's just a fact in this country. And in other cultures, Asian cultures, not uncommon, although the reason is different. It has to do with issues of shame. But similarly, right, to remove the shame, they'll kill themselves. Now, when this happened in this family, I had to take a look at that and say, what is it? Of course, it's an individual. It's an incident. I'm not looking at it as the beginning of more to come. I don't necessarily look at it that way. But if we were to look at that, you have to ask yourselves, culturally, when is it that black families have, I mean, first of all, if we were going to start killing ourselves for lack of money, a lot of us would be gone by now. We'd be dead, a lot of us. So we don't kill ourselves because we don't have money, because we've not had it. But what we did have when we didn't have money, when times got hard, was we had each other. We had family, and we had a sense, again, of that foundation piece. And I think we're living in such isolated worlds, you know, and like I said, it's difficult for me to wrap my head around that. You know, if I had a chance, maybe I could see some other things going on with him and, you know, that whole family that were, you know, a little extraordinary, because I would venture to say there's a whole lot more going on, because there are a lot of options you have before you go there. So clearly there were other things going on. But why is it he felt so compelled that there was no other option? I mean, I knew that if it got deep, you can call my cousin, my uncle, Big Mama, Big Daddy, Mud Dear, Pookie, whoever you need. We're going to find someone to help when it gets deep. That infrastructure has begun to deteriorate. Also, along with that, partnered with that, is the whole idea of people measuring themselves, their sense of worth and their sense of value, by what they have, the objects, whether that's work or jobs or money or power. And if you measure yourself with that, let's look at it. If I measure myself by my attainments materially, by my gains in terms of my job, when I lose those, I cease to have value.
Well,